Chapter 21. Despite the last-moment rush, the buffet lunch went off smoothly. Gleeson's prediction proved correct, with every beast seating themselves on the broad, sun-warmed steps which fronted the Abbey building's main door. Formal Bruffy remarked to Humble as they shared a pasty,
"Stand in my tunnels there. I never see out liking in my life. Them there's be girt victuals."
The abbot watched Corporal Wopscott wolfing his way through a mound of salad and swigging pale cider furiously.
"Indeed, they don't seem to stint themselves at meal times. Perilous scoffing, I've heard them call it. I remember, in old Friar Furdle's time, they used to say, I'd sooner feed a hare half a day than a full season. Furdle certainly had a point there."
Tam and Doogy brought their laden platters from the table and sat beside Armel and Brookie. The border warrior dipped a grilled chestnut in melted cheese and bit into it.
"No wonder you like Abbey life, Armel. This lunch is superb."
The infirmary sister sipped at her beaker of plum cordial. "I'm glad you like it. What's the matter with your friend up there? Doesn't he like company?" Turkin was perched on a dormitory windowsill, making inroads to a sizable slice of pear flan. Doogy nodded in the goshawk's direction.
"Oh, he cannot get away from the wee ones. As soon as your Dibbins found that he wasn't going to eat them, I all wanted to play with him."
Tam took up the matter of the goshawk with Armel.
"I don't know how Turkin got up there. He has an injured wing. See, the one that flaps down by his side. He was wounded by a vermin arrow. I was wondering, Armel, with your knowledge of herbs and healing, could you do anything for him? 'Tis a sad thing to see a bird like that hobbling about, unable to fly."
The pretty sister readily agreed. "Indeed it is. Bring him up to the infirmary later. I'll see what I can do. You do travel in some odd company, Tam. A wounded hawk and a thief. By the way, I haven't seen Euphus about. Where do you suppose he's got to?" Sitting close by, Brother Gordale could not help overhearing the conversation. He tapped Tam's shoulder.
"Pardon me, but I saw the waterfall you call Euphus. He seems much reserved. He filled himself a platter and went off down the south wall. Perhaps he's a trifle bashful around others."
Doogy questioned the mouse gatekeeper.
"Was he carrying a bundle and sword like mine, sir?"
Gordale thought for a moment.
"Yes, he was actually."
The gatekeeper got no further. Tam and Doogy were off and running down to the south wall. When Doogy saw the small south wicket gate hanging ajar, he stamped his footpaw down.
"Ah, knew it, the saucy wee robber. He's made off with your claim on the flag. I'd love to get my paws on the thieving rascal."
Tam closed the wicket gate and bolted it.
"So would I, mate, but he's long gone now. I'll find him sooner or later and mend his thieving ways for him. I just hope he doesn't fall into the clutches of Gulo and his vermin first. You wouldn't wish that on any beast, not even a thief. Ah, well, back to lunch, Mr. Plum."
The small Highlander shook his head in mock sadness.
"Dearie me, his ardent soul life we lead, Tam. I'll wonder what supper's going to be like, eh?"
After lunch, Tam and Doogy were called to the gatehouse where the Brigadier, Sergeant Onewell, Abbot Humble, Ferdinand and Armel waited them. Sister Armel and Skipper met them at the door. The otter chieftain nodded briefly to Tam.
"What's all this about, matey?"
Tam ushered them inside.
"Council of war, probably."
Crumshaw waved his swagger stick at the border warrior.
"Well guessed, MacBurl. That's exactly what it is. We can't rest inside Redwall eating these good creatures out of house and home without 100 of the perishing fur beasts wandering about the woodlands outside. Bare full. What?"
Humble settled both paws into his wide sleeves.
"So, Brigadier, what action do you propose?"
Crumshaw looked at the broad linen sling which was holding his wounded shoulder still.
"Not a jolly great lot I can do with this blinking thing hampering me. I was hoping for some sensible suggestions."
Ferdinand Domain pawed at his long rapier hilt.
"I say, we march out tomorrow and give the blighters a spot of good old Long Patrol blood and vinegar, sir."
The Brigadier was watching Tam closely.
"And what did you say, bucko?"
Tam had his answer ready.
"Well, I'd say we're pretty evenly matched against the vermin as regards numbers. But if we march out to find them and fight them, that leaves the Abbey unprotected, so we need a proper plan."
Onewell tapped Ferdinand's ear.
"I hope you're listening, young blood and vinegar. There's experience talking for you."
He winked at Tam.
"My apologies for interrupting, sir. I could tell you had a plan."
Tam outlined his suggestions to the group.
"First, we've got to split the patrol. Have to stay here and defend Redwall. They'll be commanded by the Brigadier. Doogy and I'll take the others out to fight the vermin."
Sister Armel looked alarmed at the suggestion. "But Tam, you'll be outnumbered 2 to 1, and those vermin are vicious brutes."
Humble chided her mildly. Don't be so hasty, sister. Hear him out first. You were saying, Tam. The warrior squirrel continued. I'm not talking about meeting Gulo and his mob head-on in a challenge. We'll use hit-and-run tactics, small, swift raids, picking the enemy off a few at a time, never stopping in one place for long. We'll be like hornets stinging the great beast, then disappearing, always drawing them further away from the abbey. Crumshaw rapped the table with his stick.
A capital tactic, sir. Duck and jolly well weave. Hit 'em where it hurts, then vanish like smoke. Oh, that's the ticket, what?
Tam outlined his strategy further. Aye, but I'll need some beast who knows the territory like the back of his paw to help us. Skipper? The burly otter nodded.
That's me, mate. When we leave for this little jaunt?
Tam pondered for a moment before answering. I think the best time would be late tonight, while the supper is still being held. We'll slip out by the east wall gate. One thing, though, the hares will have to leave their regimental tunics behind. Father, do you think you could lend us something to wear? Stuff that won't stand out so brightly in the woodlands. Humble rose from his armchair.
I'll have a word with formal Bruffy. He knows about that sort of thing.
The meeting broke up. Crumshaw and Mum will stay behind to go through the roster and decide who would go with Tam and who would stay behind at Redwall. Tam and Doogy helped Armel to entice the goshawk for treatment at the infirmary. Turgan expressed reluctance to have his injured wing attended to.
No, wing better by itself. Barrel, knock a family. Nah, have knives up there. Cut the spurs, wings off.
Armel decided the best tactic was ridicule.
Well, dearie me, you great big tippin. Brigadier Crumshaw had a worse wound than yours, and he got treated without murmur. I never used a knife to cut any beast. I'm here to heal, and not to injure, right, Doogie?
The small Highlander agreed.
Aye, right, lassie. If you and old Featherbag is too feared to make better, then what can you do, eh?
Tam winced as the hawk's powerful talons latched on to his paw. Turgan glared icily at Doogie and Armel.
Yeah, take this bird to Family Burl. What?
The goshawk proved to be a worthy patient. He perched on a bed end, nibbling candied chestnuts, which Armel kept in a big jar for her Dibben patients. As the sister worked on the goshawk's wing, she explained to Tam the significance of the sword she had given him.
Have you seen the picture of Martin the warrior on the tapestry in the great hall?
Tam passed Armel the bowl of Rabina water she had requested. Aye, he looks like a mighty warrior. No wonder, too, his sword like this. The sister cast a quick glance at the sword, which had seldom left Tam's side since he'd been in charge of it. Then she proceeded with her account to the warrior squirrel.
It is countless seasons since the day of Martin, but his legend and that of the great sword lives on. We learned at Abbey School that the hilt of the sword was one which originally belonged to Luke, Martin's father. A badger lord named Boar the fighter made the blade in the forge of Salamanderstron. He said that the metal came from a fallen star. There is no steel keener or stronger than that blade. The sword of Martin, the warrior, belongs to Redwall Abbey and must always return here, though at special times an outstanding warrior may be chosen to wield it when danger threatens us. Martin appeared to be in a dream, proclaiming that you were the one he had chosen.
Doogie selected a candied chestnut mournfully.
Oh, are you sure your mutton didn't mean me, lassie?
Tam picked up the sword. Swinging it in a flashing arc, he clipped the candied chestnut that his friend was holding neatly in half. He twirled the blade back and forth, watching the sunlight from the window playing along its edges as it cleaved the air.
Great seasons of slaughter. What a weapon. The balance and lightness, the way it fits my paw. I could face any 10 vermin armed with this sword.
Armel rapped Doogie's paw as he reached for another chestnut.
Mr. Plumm, there's only for injured Dibbons.
Turgan cackled as he grabbed another from the jar.
And wounded birds who not be feared.
The banquet supper that evening was a splendid affair. Redwallers sat cheek by jowl with long patrol hares, chattering and laughing as they did justice to the culinary triumphs of Friar Gleeson and some of Burlop's best-seller produce. The centrepiece was a huge meadow cream trifle garlanded with pink rosebuds of almond icing. Soups, dips and salads took up the border of the table. Behind them came pastries, turnovers, tarts and flans. Closer in were the crumbles and cakes. As each course was completed, the dishes were removed and the next course brought forward. Burlop presided over a side trestle which was lined with drinks, from October ale and pale cider to cordials and squashes, with mint and fragrant herb teas. Even the ravenous hares were sated after a while, yet there was plenty left, and always new dishes being ferried in by helpers with trolleys. A variety of entertainment was provided by numerous of the banquet attendees.
and moulded some magic tricks. A trio of mousemaids danced an intricate reel, which involved weaving multicoloured ribbons into a plaited circle. Then a party of dibbons performed a high-kicking jig, their little faces screwed up with concentration as every beast called out encouragement to them. During a lull, when the tankards and beakers were being refilled, Tam and Doogy obliged with a sword dance from their northern home. They received great applause, but had to warn some enthusiastic dibbons about attempting to imitate them. Banging their tankards on the tabletops, the long patrol called to Onewell and Crumshaw.
"I say, sir, how about you and the Sarge giving us a ballad? Yes, that jolly one about Augie and Bobs. Hey, clear the floor there for the Brigadier and the Sergeant. Give order, please, you chaps."
Crumshaw and Onewell got up, much to the delight of the younger hares. They sang an old salamander-strum barracks room ballad, waltzing about paw in paw with a dignified air.
"Old Augie and Bobs and me received the official call to attend ASAP at the regimental ball. All togged up in our best, went we a sight to see, combed and brushed and polished, old Augie and Bobs and me. Honour and bow to your partners, chaps of the long patrol. Whirl and curl and twirl your tail, as round as the floor we roll. All the pretty ladies looking for company, and didn't we oblige them, old Algie and Blobs and me? Refreshments then were served, and Bob sipped on a flan. He bumped into the Colonel's daughter headfirst into a ban. Then Algie slung a puddin', hit the Major's bright to be, and the Sergeant fired a crumble at Algie and Bobs and me. Oh, pass me a trifle smartly, with a cherry on top for luck. It smacked the quartermaster, he was bowled out for a duck. Lathered in cream and howling, arrest those blooming three. We wound up in the guardhouse, old Algie and Bobs and me.
Finishing with a swirl and a flourish, the Brigadier and the Sergeant bowed and curtsied to hoots of applause from the rankers. The banquet continued as formal Bruffy signalled to Skipper.
"Garments you ask for bees ready in the kitchen, sir."
Those who had been picked excused themselves and went to get kitted out. Shortly after they emerged, clad in simple, short smocks of subdued brown and green, their blades being smoke blackened over a fire by Friar Gleeson. Brigadier Crumshaw looked them over.
"Stab me, you look like a right crew of rogues, what?"
Onewell saluted.
"Begging your pardon, sir, but they ain't going out for no dress parade."
With his good arm, Crumshaw clasped his faithful sergeant's paw firmly.
"Let's hope they come back safe, what?"
Tam's 50 hares took a moment to bid good-bye to their comrades and the friends they had made at Redwall.
"Well, Toodlepip, old lad, and chin up, what? Oh, you lucky toads, I've got the hard job stopping back here and scoffing all that super grub, eh? Yeah, we'll be thinking of you. Give 'em a few biffs for us, will you?"
Kersey, who'd been sitting in the background, presented Ferdinand with Dauncey's sling and pebble bag.
"Take this along with you, and watch out for yourself."
He bowed gallantly.
"I'll be looking out for you when I come back, if I may."
A faint smile creased Kersey's lips.
"Thank you, Mr. Domain. That would please me."
Armel gave Tam a small satchel.
"There's a few herbs and dressings in case you're wounded, Tam."
He winked at the pretty squirrel maid.
"I'll use them to bandage up Doogie's mouth if he starts grumbling. Stay safe now. Don't worry about me."
The border warrior turned to salute the Brigadier.
"All present and correct, sir. Ready to move off."
Crumshaw smiled at Tam.
"I knew I could count on you, MacBurl. Right. Forward the buffs, eh, what? True blue and never fell. That's your ticket."
Skipper tweaked Brookie's nose lightly.
"Behave yourself now, missy. Don't you go whooping and laughing and upsetting every beast while I'm gone."
The otter maid hugged her uncle tightly.
"Right, your Skip. I'll cry in the night and keep 'em all awake until you get back."
Brother Gordale opened the east wicker gate, patting each one on the back as they stole off silently into the night-shrouded woodlands. He bolted the door shut, remarking to Sister Screeve, who had accompanied him,
"Oh, there they go. Luck and fortune go with them."
The recorder mouse shuddered, drawing her claw close.
"Like the seasons at Redwall are such brave allies."